Ladies and gentlemen, be seated, please. I formally hereby open this official sitting, and as is common here in Tilburg, I would like to do that with a prayer. And may I kindly request the gentlemen, the colleagues, to take off their caps, well, they already did, in a very good tradition. May the spirit of wisdom and mercy grow and blossom in all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Emiel Aerts. I am the new rector, and I decided as of today, because this is my 100th day here at this university, that I'm not new anymore. As of now, I'm just the rector. I'm very happy that we have a very nice program this afternoon with very many renowned speakers who will play an important role. And it's also a little bit scary because one of the speakers, that's Mr. Timmermans, he is still traveling and he has to pass over the ring of Antwerp. And as we know, anything can happen there. So we hope that he will be here in time and we will improvise if needed. And I will tell you all about this later. Hopefully that is not necessary. Let's start, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me really great pleasure to announce my dear colleague, Koen Becking, the president of our executive board, who will give the first speech of this afternoon. Koen, please come over to us here and share your story with us.
Thank you very much, Emiel, Mr. Rector. It's for the first time since we had Al Gore that we have a full auditorium. So thank you all for being here, because we enjoy your company. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we are here to mark the official opening of the new academic year. This is always a memorable occasion, but perhaps even more so this year for several reasons. It is the first opening ceremony to be presided over by our new Rector Magnificus, Emiel Aerts. Later we shall welcome a very special guest speaker, Mr. Frans Timmermans, the first Vice President of the European Commission. We are honored that he has made time to share his views on the rule of law in Europe. And we are very much looking forward to hearing from Professor Kim Lane-Chappell of Princeton University, who will speak about a Europe of values. The theme for this afternoon is advancing society, familiar territory for our guests. Frans Timmermans has been working to advance society throughout his long and distinguished career in public service. He has never sought the easy route. His current portfolio as European Commissioner includes better regulation and the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights. This is surely an enormous challenge given the slightly strained relationships of recent months. Why does Tilburg University want to advance society? It is not a question of idealism, or maybe a bit as well, but one of responsibility. It is our duty. We have a moral obligation to contribute to society, not least because we live and work in a prosperous nation. As our colleague Bartel van der Walle tells his students, it is a privilege to be so well off that we can help others. Bartel is known for his work on coordinating disaster response efforts using the social media all over the world. He encourages all students to be socially active because it expands their horizons, helps them to identify needs, and enables them to address those needs. Bartel often works in very difficult and harrowing circumstances. His motivation is the social relevance of his work, as we can read in our annual report. This desire for societal relevance characterizes Tilburg University and has done so since its earliest days. Our founder, Professor Martinus Kobenhagen, believed that an education in economics is incomplete if it does not also consider ethics and social responsibility. This philosophy has always been a cornerstone of our educational vision. It is what sets us apart, and it will continue to do so. In today's world, we must devote even greater attention to social relevance for several reasons. There are many challenges, not only those at the European level, which occupy Mr. Timmermans. The demographic trend of population aging combines with rapid advances in technology to bring about major changes on, for instance, the employment market. We see the emergence of new forms of service provision. This demands a university that can move with the times, is willing and able to innovate, and can address the requirements of society. At the same time, that university must be contrary enough to initiate its own research, perhaps not knowing precisely where that research will lead. We aim to produce graduates who are true global citizens, able to make a valuable contribution to society. They are independent thinkers who understand society and can play their part in improving it. We must demonstrate our social added value, and this is indeed what the government expects of us. Only recently, the Minister of Education, Jet Bussemaker, called for universities to devote greater attention to Bildung, the all-round development of their students. A university must not only reach out to society, but must bring society within its walls. Our strategy combines social innovation with technological innovation. The Brabant region offers many opportunities for institutes of higher education to put their heads together and form alliances. We might even think in terms of a University of Brabant. We wish to invest in projects in which we work alongside other organizations, public and private, to arrive at new solutions to challenges in areas such as healthcare and employment. This type of cooperation will bring students and staff in direct contact with the world beyond the campus. Our colleague, Professor Katrien Luijks, already has very close ties with the healthcare sector, as we can read in our annual report. She is a leading authority on geriatric care, and her ambition is to make her knowledge available to care organizations, helping them to work more effectively. Tilburg University has a moral obligation to advance society. However, this is not our only motive. We do so because it is inspiring. Working to create a better world provides enormous satisfaction, and it is particularly fulfilling when a university provides the means to do so. It's also very satisfying to explore uncharted territory through our fundamental research. Our social orientation helps us to maintain a distinctive profile. This, together with high-quality standards and our great campus, with its small-scale, specialized character, is what makes Tilburg University attractive. These are the qualities which today's young people seek in a seat of learning. We can therefore look forward to welcoming an increasing number of students, especially if we are also successful in raising the quality of our education and research even further. This is another important ambition with the current strategy. We shall make substantial investments in quality, partly from the reserves and partly with resources made available by the BEST restructuring program. In time, the government is to provide additional funding further to the savings. It will achieve following the introduction of the new student loan system. Our internal reorganization, will be finalized over the coming months, whereupon everyone will know his or her new role in time to begin working in the new structure from January 1st next year. The savings will be made to use to finance many additional teaching and PhD research posts. In short, we are doing precisely what the Minister has asked. We expect the government to keep its side of the bargain. There must be significant extra investments in education and research. This is absolutely essential if we are to maintain our high international reputation. We shall therefore also continue to press for the prompt implementation of the open access policy, under which all scientific publications are made freely available to all, as so forcefully advocated by government. Are we achieving our aims? It is only 18 months since the strategic plan came into effect, so it is too early to draw any firm conclusions. We have begun many new initiatives, which have yet to mature, such as the new educational profile and the diversity policy. We are also working on a new university college and the Copenhagen Center, which will promote our values and identity. The governance structure has been strengthened with the appointment of several prominent academics. We've also invested in efforts to improve our students' career perspectives. Again, it is still too early to expect firm results, but the intention is that all students should be equipped with the knowledge and skills which today's rapidly changing employment market demands. The Career Services Department will help them identify and develop those skills. It is important that we offer programs and courses in line with society's changing requirements. For example, there is now a demand for people who are familiar with the world of big data. Last year, I announced the intention of establishing a graduate school for data science in Den Bosch. We have since made excellent progress, and the partners, the provincial authority, the city of Den Bosch, and the both Brabant universities have given their full commitment to the initiative. Several private partner companies, large and small, have also promised financial support. In short, interest is very high. Once again, I refer to our annual report in which Colette Kuipers of Tilt explains her personal mission. It is to reform, renew, and improve her educational activities that her students are able to offer, the skills and knowledge which will be needed in the future. She wishes to develop critical academics who can make a difference. To ascertain whether this is indeed the case, she maintains close contact with alumni and others active on the employment market. We continue to do well in research rankings and in program assessments. Both enrollment numbers and overall student satisfaction have risen significantly. As you may recall, the National Student Survey put us in 10th place in 2013. We made significant progress to reach 6th place in 2014, and today we are in joint 3rd position. In terms of student numbers, we will see the biggest increase of any university in the country, probably more than 20% the coming year. In the International Times Higher Education ranking, we will probably also rise significantly. We can all be justly proud of these achievements. But there has also been criticism. During the past year, we have heard several nationwide calls for academic staff to be given greater input in how the institute is run, for more transparency in governance, and for the workload to be reduced, not least in terms of the administrative requirements. We have taken those points on board and intend to work with you to find solutions. Our ambition is for Tilburg to be universally acknowledged as a leading research-driven social university. Prospective students and top talent should opt for us based on this profile and the quality of our education and research. We are well on the way, but we are not there yet. There remains much work to be done. The strategic plan, to which many of you contributed, can be refined to achieve even greater focus. We must be very clear with regard to the direction we wish to take. In 2010, the Veerman Commission concluded that the quality of education and research would be greatly enhanced if institutes of higher education were to adopt a more distinctive profile. Its recommendations have yet to be fully implemented. The lead role in defining the new focus and direction falls to our, not new anymore, Rector Magnificus Emiel Aert. He has taken up the challenge with vigor, working to establish distinctive education, innovative research, and relevant valorization. When accepting the position of Rector Magnificus, Emiel suggested that the mission and motto of the university, understanding society, should be or might be changed to advancing society. This seemed an excellent idea. Merely understanding how society works is not enough. We must apply our knowledge to bring about change and create a better world. Advancing society is quite a claim, Mr. Rector. It falls to all of us to fulfill the promise, and that calls for hard work and daring. The hard work is the task of improving our education and research while retaining our social orientation. The daring applies to innovation. We must look at problems from new angles. You cannot change the world by sitting back and telling other people what they should be doing. Advancing society begins with yourself. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Koen, for your insights and thoughts, to share them with us about the present and the future of our university. From my side, I can say that I fully support the interesting perspective and intentions and the challenges that you expressed as we move this university on and up, of course. Also, a personal word directly to you. I would like to thank you for your friendship in the past 100 days. We have been working together as a team, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope that we can do that for a number of days to come. As you mentioned, Koen, education, research, and valorization are indeed the three primary topics that I wish to elaborate on in my short presentation. And I would like to begin by telling you a story about this young lady. Her name is Leonor Slobbe, a master's student in management who applied for a job interview with KLM. I was particularly impressed by her creative and the proactive approach that she used. She applied contemporary social media to profile herself, as you can see here. She even bought a KLM bicycle to do this. And that made me curious to find out how she got along after her graduation. We exchanged a few messages on Facebook, and what came out is the following. Leonor, indeed, was capable of being invited to have a job interview to KLM to explore the opportunities. And that is great news, of course. And in the meantime, she went to Cambodia to work on a water treatment project enabled by Western donations installing clean water filters, giving people there a permanent access to safe and clean water. And that's excellent. I would like to inquire, Leonor, are you with us? She's not here. I invited her. Well, she's probably on a job interview. Ladies and gentlemen, when I think of the Tilburg University profile, I think of people like Leonor. For me, she is a role model, and I call them entrepreneurial thinkers. Young people who wish to apply their talents, intelligence and knowledge and energy to create a better future for themselves and for society at the same time. They use their knowledge to make deliberate decisions, and they use their skills to turn them into action. You know, many thinkers don't act, and many entrepreneurials don't think. We are going to make a combination in the future, and that's what we teach these people here. Last week, I was impressed by another phenomenon, you could call it, that took place at this university. I witnessed the arrival of our new students. Almost 3,000 young freshmen from more than 60 nationalities participated in the various introductory programs and courses. And without exception, I saw enthusiasm and excitement. Although last Friday, early in the morning, I saw some tired students, and then I said to myself, they really must have enjoyed this week, at least so far. With a growth, and Koen already alluded to that, of 25%, that's what the perspectives are. In the number of new enrollments, Tilburg University evidently has more than reversed the downward trend of the recent years and is thriving once more. With double-digit growth, we are the fastest growing university in the Netherlands. Koen already mentioned it. And it proves that we have unique assets that make Tilburg University attractive to young students, and we are very, very, very happy with their development. While growth in the number is indeed desirable, we need to make sure that we maintain our high quality standards, as these contribute to our appeal. And here you see a rather intricate slide, but it shows basically what we are. Scientific excellence is in the heart of what we do. There can be no discussion about that. But there are three channels, three primary processes that we apply to leverage them. And that's what we call education, and that's what we call research, and that is what we call valorization. And all the things we do should fuel these challenges. And managing the growth and excellence at the same time is a challenge, and we want to continue the growth at the same rates as we already had this year, and we need to find new, smarter ways of working to accommodate that. Fortunately, our education profile developed by Alkeline van Lenning provides a number of interesting leads from which we can approach this challenge. The education of new scalable teaching concepts like tutor and mentor groups and the use of advanced ICT methods in education are promising directions to develop a fully 5-star student-centric approach to education. Whenever I meet the young students, I am impressed with their dedication and motivation. They are keen to take the next step in their career development. We, as a university, should be able to maintain and grow this spirit throughout their study at Tilburg University. We should become a university that not just delivers certificates. We should become a university that delivers careers. 3 months ago, ladies and gentlemen, when I took over office from my predecessor, Philip Eilander, I was standing here in the same position, on the same stage, referring to Tilburg University as a sleeping beauty. And here you see her. It's a beauty but nothing is going on. I have to explain that later. While I was alluding to its many allegedly hidden or at least underexposed qualities, standing here 100 days later, I can only say that all impressions I got from the many discussions I had during this period with you and with others not present here today, they confirm and deepen my opinion. I also mentioned at that same occasion that I was not willing to present a ready-made 5-year master program explaining how I was intending to kiss her awake from the slumber. Neither shall I do this today. We as an executive board, we intend to do this during the next Dies Natalis celebration scheduled for November this year. And of course we do that in the hope that you all will be here again and that we can say that we filled this auditorium 3 times to the full. Nevertheless, there are some course lines and there are some plans and they are surfacing, and I would like to use this occasion to share some of them with you. And of course they are from a personal perspective, but they should serve as an overture to what we intend to present later on this year. During the past months, I have spent much time getting to know Tilburg University better. I have toured around the various departments of our university. I spoke with academics, professors, managers, administrators, students, members of the support staff. I'm under the impression that I know it all. Together, we have discussed about every aspect of governance, education, research, and valorization, which has led to a wealth of insights to me. I have familiarized myself with the Tilburg way of working, how we should interact with the outside world and with the university's culture, explaining how we should interact amongst ourselves. And from what I have seen, I can only conclude that this is a great university. First of all, as I already mentioned, there is this huge population of highly motivated students who greatly appreciate the education and Bildung that we provide. This is rightly so confirmed by the various rankings and, of course, the assets in which we are achieving constantly better results. I have met our dedicated and professional staff who are keen to raise our university to a higher level of excellence, constantly looking for new ways to improve the processes in place. I have been privileged to meet many excellent scientists whose research enjoys an international reputation. And they are productive, they are creative, they are innovative, able to take the world by surprise, and with their excellent research and deep scientific insights, they are an asset to our university. Tilburg University fares extremely well in the rankings of specialist universities. We hope even to be close to the 200th position worldwide of specialist universities. And our specialists, our professors, they feature prominently in the media. And despite what many of us think, or maybe feel, in my impression, scientific excellence still rules here in Tilburg. And in terms of university culture, students are justly impressed with what we do, our openness, and the degree to which we consult them about matters that are likely or directly affecting them. This has earned us the coveted toffe peren award. And here you see it was handed over to Koen, and he was properly dressed for the occasion. As I said, the past months have confirmed my original impressions. Our sleeping beauty has much to offer, if only she would wake up and to become fully active and make full use of her talents and qualities. And that is not just my opinion, it is confirmed by hard facts and figures. And by exception, ladies and gentlemen, because one is often making mistakes, because one might forget others, by exception, I would like to mention 3 persons in particular for their exceptional achievements. The first 2 are recent Vici-grant winners, Professors Bart-Jaap Koops and Emiel Kramer, whose work is widely recognized as truly excellent. And the third person is Professor Rianne Letcher, who became a president of the Young Academy of the KNAW. I can only say, so much excellence, so much spirit. In one word, it's awesome. And all these assets, ladies and gentlemen, enable us, Tilburg University, to make a major contribution to the advancement of society. The world in which we are currently living places ever higher demands on our education and research. As Koen mentioned earlier, globalization and technology are making knowledge readily accessible to all. Technology has become a commodity. What we are going to use it for is what is going society make tick in the future. The main driver behind most of these solutions to the grand societal challenges, and here you see the ones listed by the European Commission as part of the Horizon 2020 program. These solutions, they come from digitization or datafication, as we call it, of the world. Society's demand for knowledge and information is hardly satiable. People want answers and solutions, and they want them now. Researchers, government, and private sector organizations demand ready access to data and knowledge developed elsewhere. Expectations of life are high and growing all over the world, and competition is fierce. And data science, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the answers to this. As Tilburg University, we have a great opportunity, and we are willing to profile ourselves in this direction. And let me explain a little how we are going to do this. And for a start, why? Universities worldwide must adopt to a more distinctive profile. If you are not recognized as one of the top universities in a specific domain, you simply don't count, especially not in the international scenery. And just 3 days ago, ladies and gentlemen, on 28th of August, the renowned institute, known as the Rathenau Institute here in the Netherlands, published a report, and I see that Sylvester already read it in detail, and the report was simple. The universities in the Netherlands don't have a future if they stay as broad as many of them are. They need to profile. And it is a question of developing a brand that starts with awareness and develops into loyalty. This not only holds true for prospective students and scientists that want to come to Tilburg University, but it also holds true for the various stakeholders with whom we collaborate, other universities. Eindhoven University at the first place, the city of Tilburg, the city of Eindhoven, the other big cities in the Brabant region, but also the Netherlands, and even at the national level, all the stakeholders in the network in which we participate. As the government increasingly withdraws from its traditional areas of responsibility, the pressure to be a participant university becomes that much greater. We are now expected to raise a significant proportion of our revenues ourselves, which means approaching various organizations, the third stream funding, as we call it, for a share of direct funding. And I like this. This gives us a tremendous opportunity. To be honest, it's even not on the paper here. If I would have been given the opportunity to be director of one of the broad universities in the Netherlands, I would have turned that down. I came to Tilburg because of the assets that Tilburg has and because of the fact that we are small at the moment. We can step up widely And there is a great future for us if we can get our act together. I am dreaming of Tilburg University to become an outstanding third-generation university. That is a university that deals with knowledge at 3 levels. So we deal with knowledge at 3 levels. We transfer it. We call that education. We expand it. That's what we call research. And we are turning it into knowledge that has societal and economic value, and that's what we call valorization. And not all of us need to act in any of these 3 domains. But there should be at least one domain for each of us individually where we tell our colleagues that we like to stand up and contribute. And I want us to excel at all these 3 levels as a university. Evidently, scientific excellence should provide the foundation for all of our professional activities. I mentioned that before. And that is the key asset of a top university. And for me, there is no doubt whatsoever about this direction. In the not so distant past, ladies and gentlemen, Tilburg University adopted this slogan to keep up with its profile. Koen already mentioned it. We called it Understanding Society. Through this slogan, we wish to express and highlight our concern for the interaction between technology and society, and in this respect, it was a fine motto. But in my impression, it did not do justice to our full potential, as understanding is a passive concept. One can understand it all, but do nothing. We want to make a difference, and that's the reason why we announced that we will raise our ambition level. We no longer wish to only understand society, we also wish to advance it. And this does not mean that we must now run around and change all the signs or typex over all the headings in the note papers. We can let those things take their natural courses. It is a cultural thing. We should change our minds. It does, however, mean that we must make a plan whereby we will establish a firm position in the world of education, research, and valorization. And to do so, we must ensure that all activities are better coordinated and that our cooperation with each other is more effective than it is now. Only then we can develop and follow a clear agenda in an efficient and effective way. Cooperation is not an end in itself, but it is a means to an end. Well, we all know it, but what does it mean? Once we know what we want and are working according to the agenda, we can no longer act as autonomous individuals. We must pull together. We must work to achieve a common objective. We need to develop on each other and depend on each other, take ownership and act responsibly. For some of us, this means that you need to change a little of your mindsets from what can this university do for me to what can I contribute to this university. And I know this is not new, but when Kennedy said it, he also was a freshman. We need to work on our elan and spirit, and I'm sure that we can do that. We have mentioned already a number of examples. TIAS, Transo, the other centers, they are really excellent. And I'm very proud that we have them. But there are 2 new initiatives. For one, I would like to mention DAF Virtual Reality Lab, a unique living laboratory offering students the opportunity to contribute to the development of virtual reality concepts with the active support of stakeholders from the private sector. Here it all comes together. Education, research, and valorization. And another fine example is the newly founded university college, which is rooted deeply in various multidisciplinary concepts that provide our newly entrepreneurial thinkers with the skills needed to advance society with practical solutions, yet adhering to what Tilburg University has in its DNA, and that is the human aspect of society. We can work together more efficiently and effectively if we have a clear plan under the banner of advancing society. I have a number of firm aims. Here you see them for 2020. I wish to see Tilburg University occupy a prominent position in the world university rankings. I want it to be rated among the best, preferably the best, in the National Student Survey. And that is not so difficult, ladies and gentlemen. You know, we looked into that from a statistical perspective, class. And there are 12 elements. And 9 of these elements we score above average. And for 3 we do really very badly. So you can prove it from a mathematical perspective, that if we can raise those 3 to the average level, we become the best. So it's as simply as that. Just focus on those 3 and see to it that the other 9 are okay. Wow. I wish to see our knowledge to be such. I lost contact with my story even. I wish the third element, I'm so excited. I wish that the third element is also that in 2020 we have on an average, so as a run rate, 15,000 students. That is a fair share in the Netherlands. It's about 5.5%. It's doable. We are close to 13,000. So with double-digit growth, Ingrid, for just a few years, we can manage, and you may control it. In June, I said that valorization should not just be regarded as a mere adjunct to education and research. In my view, valorization is an essential component of a modern university's work, one that justifies its very existence even. Here too we see that cooperation is of growing importance. We cannot allow ourselves to fall behind. We must be open to alliances with other universities. And that's why we need a strategy. If you collaborate, you should know better what you want whenever you don't want to collaborate. So Koen already mentioned it. This story is just a repetition of yours, Koen. I'm very proud to mention again that we are going to launch this grant initiative on data science. 4 parties, ladies and gentlemen. The province of Noord-Brabant, the city of Den Bosch, the University of Eindhoven, the University of Tilburg. At the end of this week, we will celebrate that we are really to go and make this work. Next year, I hope not to stand here, but to open the academic year in Den Bosch. And to announce that we have given birth to a new baby. We call her Marienburg. And she lives in Den Bosch, and it will be a great thing. Cooperation, ladies and gentlemen, extends beyond the scientific sphere. The major changes within society entail equally, major changes in governance and administration. Our university, like our competitors, must take heed of market forces. This has occasionally led to some friction. This is a difficult passage for me. Some people feel that the role of the administrator is given undue importance here in Tilburg, and that their voice, so the voice of the academics, is not heard. During my wandering in my first days here, I discovered the existence of a petition drawn up and signed by a group of eminent professors of this university. They assert that the distance between the university's administration and the work floor, particularly the senior academic staff, is too great, too large. And after having studied the petition, its contents, and after having discussed it with a number of the subscribers, I came to the conclusion that I only can agree. I want to close the gap and restore the trust and confidence with this group. And for this we need to find ways to reopen and strengthen the dialogue with the scientific community at this university. For me, this has top priority, ladies and gentlemen. However, I cannot do it alone. I therefore call upon you, my dear colleagues, to help me submit concrete proposals so that we can start a constructive discussion. I would like to close the era of the petition, and I would like to reopen a new time span from which you will say, my gosh, the guy has understood it, and he is acting accordingly. So bear with me. Running a university is a challenge, and its leaders must see to it that they live and rule from within a situation that is not conceived as an ivory tower and just make plans and impose them upon you as our workers. Those plans must enjoy broad support, and they must inspire. They must be practical, and they must be practicable. The resources needed for their implementations must be made available. Support, trust, and open consultation are essential to this end. And I'm therefore pleased to report to you that the Executive Board and the College of Deans jointly have agreed to form a so-called senior management team of this university, which in the future will support the decision-making process through intensive and constructive discussions and lean implementations. And this is a great achievement. And I'm really, guys, lady, looking forward to working with you in the future. We can then move forward as quickly as possible with a minimum of bureaucracy. And I am also pleased, in addition, to note the very satisfactory progress that Koen has made with his team with respect to BEST, a major action, and he should deserve full support for this from all of you, because we are facing a difficult implementation phase in the second half of this year. The objective is to achieve similar gains throughout the organization by improving coordination and cooperation between the faculties, the departments, and all of his staff. And finally, I can announce this fall that we will run a project. We call it Speech 2015. It's unique, and we will invite all representatives from different walks of this university to present on stage during a major event their visions on the future of this university as if they were the president or the rector themselves. I'm really looking forward to this event, ladies and gentlemen. And if many of you sign up, we will hire a big hall in the center of this town and perform there. Dear colleagues, in conclusion, I hope that my sleeping beauty is waking up and that we will see some action. And dear colleagues, I'm looking at the capped persons and all the other people of this university. I wish to express my gratitude for being your rector. I have enjoyed every minute of my first 100 days here at this university, even the discussions with the University Council. And I hope that I can serve you in the years to come in my capacity of the innovative rector. And if you want to get in touch with me, we can use the media. Thank you for your attention. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the happy part. We spoke about advancing society. We spoke about entrepreneurial thinkers. And this is not something new. It is just what we made explicit as the DNA from our university. And therefore, it gives me great pleasure to announce in sequence 3 young persons. They are all connected to our university in their capacity of students. They are all alumni, and they will share with us what they have been doing after they left us. So, as a first speaker, I would like to announce Alexander Nijdam. And Alexander is an entrepreneur of Divention. Alexander, tell us your story.
I will, thank you. Good afternoon. So, just to recap, I'm not graduated yet. At the end of October, I'll be collecting my Supply Chain Management Master Diploma. Very happy to do so. Just recapping on your presentation, Emil. So, what I saw was that you referred to entrepreneurial thinker. And that really rang some bells with me. Okay, still too early. So during my second years of study, I made a decision with some fellow students to start my own company. So what we saw, what we recognized, what we read is that there was also a professor, but on TU Delft, and in every lecture he would tell that, well, in Europe there are 2 coal power plants running full time to keep our doorbells powered. And we thought, well, that's kind of useless because it's just a doorbell. So let's fix that problem. So let's come up with an idea to do so. So what we did was we invented the solar powered doorbell, as you can see on the picture. And yeah, that was, I think, also the reason that I was interviewed for the annual report. And what I explained in the annual report is that entrepreneurs, I think by definition, are one of the best people to understand the society, which was, of course, the mission statement of this university before. So what we as entrepreneurs recognize is that whenever you go somewhere, whenever you read the newspaper, you watch television, you talk to someone, you continuously look for opportunities to bring your own idea or your own company further. So you always reason, you think with yourself like, okay, I've just read this article, okay, what can I do with it? How can I apply this for my own company, for my own organization? And I think that's really what understanding society is for an entrepreneur. But for our next coming period, it will be advancing society. So this also rang some bells. Okay, still too early. With us, with my entrepreneurial ideas, because what we as entrepreneurs try to do is we try to recognize opportunities, and then we try to take action. So actually advance in this subject. And yeah, I think that's kind of cool. Because especially as a student, you get to see so much new stuff. You follow courses, and the courses like finance, accounting, these are not just useful for the bookkeeping of your own company, but other courses help reasoning, making strategic decisions. Because if you're an entrepreneur and you make a decision, it will impact money, and that can hurt you, or maybe. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, also with my entrepreneurial experience, I was asked to be a board member of the Academic Business Club last year. And one of the most interesting things I found out during this year is that, well, we were asked to host a workshop for the Study Association Asset. And what we did was we hosted a workshop in entrepreneurial thinking, actually, for second-year business economics students. So we presented them with a societal problem. We asked them, well, you may know that regular city centers there's an exodus of shops. So there's more space getting empty, and it's like a downward spiral. So it's not really friendly anymore to go to the city center to shop, as is currently happening in Veldhoven, where I'm from. So I presented them with this problem, and I told them, well, you have to form groups, and you have to brainstorm how to come up with a solution to this. And then I saw something really interesting. So what I saw was that whenever someone came up with a clever idea, the others in the same group would come up with arguments why this idea was not feasible, why this idea wouldn't work. So then the person which initially came with the idea then said, well, it's not a very good idea then, because yeah, it won't work anyways. And that's what goes wrong. So then we told them, like, okay, try not to think about why this idea wouldn't work, try to think about solutions, try to think about why this idea would work and how to make this happening. And I think that's one important aspect of entrepreneurial thinking. And that's also why I believe that's key to advancing society. Because what I've also seen during internships I've done before is that companies like Philips, for instance, they are actively searching for people with this entrepreneurial mindset, with people who don't believe in the current business structures, who would like to break down walls just to get efficiency, to improve the company, improve the organization. And I think my supervisor, Roland Levering, may know that I don't really follow the regular process for my master thesis, for instance. But I think that's okay, because that's where we can, as a Dutch economy, with other countries coming up very strong, get our competitive advantage. If we all start to think more entrepreneurial-like, to get efficiency, to get stuff done, then we can keep being this great economy. So, okay, that's it for my story. So I hope that this rang some bells. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexander, for sharing your ringing bells with us. We have another fine example, ladies and gentlemen, coming from the honors program. So I would like to give the floor to Marieke Franken, who is going to tell us about the DICE Foundation.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, my name is Marieke Franke, and 3 years ago I was a first-year business economics student here at Tilburg University. And during my first year, I realized I wanted to do something next to my studies, to broaden my horizon and to enforce my chances for my future career. So I was very glad that 1 year later, I was admitted to the Outreaching Honors Program, a program which aims to apply science into practice and to give back to society. And one of the elements of this program is an internationally oriented internship. For this, I get the opportunity to be part of the board of Stichting DICE and to do my internship at our partner organization in India. And our partner organization is called Amshagar. And I really had an amazing and very inspiring time there. It's located in a little village called Uttan. It's near Mumbai. And while I was there, I taught at the school and I helped out at the orphanage, and I got to know the Indian culture and their lifestyle. What I've really learned and what my time in India showed me is what education can do to children and the society as a whole. Because we often take education for granted. Well, in 2010, there were still over 60 million children who didn't have access to primary school. So besides the effects education has on children purely for the sake of having education, the power of education can be seen on a much wider scale. It can enforce healthcare, wealth, and of course the economy. So Stichting DICE is a foundation founded in 2012 by Outreaching students. What we try to do is make education more accessible for children all over the world. We do this by organizing activities here in the Netherlands and raising funds for our partner organization in India. Moreover, we also have several volunteers going to our partner organization each year, so that we have a clear vision and we know exactly what is going on at our partner organization and we know where our money is going. So one of the examples of activities we organize is the Color the World Holy Festival. We organized it last year, and we not only managed to raise over 5,000 euros with this festival, but we also created some awareness among students in Tilburg about education in other places in the world. So our contributions to Amshagar helped them to build a new school for over 700 children who didn't have the opportunity to get a good education because the former school of Amshagar was too small and it didn't have the right facilities. So we are very glad that we could have been part of this contribution. And for Stichting DICE, we want to look further than India. We want to look for a new partner organization somewhere else in the world, because there are still many places where education is not common at all. For Tilburg University, I hope that they will continue with programs such as Outreaching to show students what is actually going on in the world and how they can do something about it. And through this, I hope more and more students will be motivated to start their own initiative to make a change. Because if there's something I've learned during these last 3 years, it is that small initiatives can actually make a change. Thank you.
Great work, Marieke. The next example, ladies and gentlemen, is very special because there are these two guys who are two brothers. And one is coming from Eindhoven, one is coming from the university here in Tilburg, and they work together on a very special project. They serve society and they make money with it. The floor is yours. Oh, by the way, the name is Harmen van Heijst. And the name of the brother is Marcel van Heijst. Harmen, take the floor.
Thank you very much. Hello, nice to be here. My name is indeed Harmen, and I'm the Tilburg brother then, I guess. So my brother, he studied in Eindhoven. And we started the company, actually with the three of us, another student from Eindhoven University. And we realized the smartly distributed energy networks of tomorrow. And we actually do that today already, and we started in India. So we go back to India. And I'd like to briefly take you to our journey so far, from graduating to where we are now, and then link that to advancing society, actually. So what we do is we create the energy networks of tomorrow, which are more, maybe you know the term smart grids. We link different energy sources. And one of my co-founders, Evan, he graduated in Eindhoven on this topic, and he found out that we can already do this today in India, where they also skip landlines for calling. They just make phone calls with their mobile phones right away. It was the largest growing country considering mobile phone usage. So there we can leapfrog actually new models. We can leapfrog existing infrastructure. So also here we think we can serve these 400 million people without access to electricity by already providing them the right solution right away. It's really an opportunity to do it the right way directly. And this was such an inspiring graduation project of Ivan, then my brother, Marcel, he studied industrial design at Eindhoven University, and he thought, let's make this happen. And he took a plane to India the next day and thought, let's make it happen. And of course, that sounds very nice. So then here we are, going to India for the first time, not really knowing what to encounter. And of course, it's a good thing, because there's been a lot of studies to these rural villages in India. So reading all these theses, you know exactly what to expect, right? But then you are there, and this is actually reality. They are way more interested in your skin color than whatever you have to tell them. And we wanted to explain them a concept of smart grids, which is hard to explain here, actually. So that was a bit more difficult than expected, actually. So we had to look again, right? We had to see, we learned a lot of methods on how to make this happen, how to actually transform society in a sense. And yeah, we found out that energy already was a difficult concept. So we thought we have to open this up. So what we did, for example, we gave them some cameras they could throw away after usage, and we asked them, take some picture of energy. We really wanted to broaden what is electricity in their concept, actually, because we couldn't explain what we wanted to achieve there. So they took pictures, and it was very nice. We saw pictures of the sky, because the stars are energy. We saw pictures of people shaking hands, because that's the life energy that floats from one person to the other, which is of course beautiful, but it didn't really help us to grow an energy network, right? So yeah, there we were. We came back to the Netherlands and found out that we had to use a different approach. So we started a new approach, and we said we have to fake like it's already there. We have to present them something tangible, something they can touch, something they can respond to, instead of a concept like energy. So we went back to India. We went to do some shopping. We had to draw the shopping list because it was difficult to communicate in some areas, although in big cities they might speak English, but in the smaller villages it's still Hindi. This was the fourth product we made in a day. It broke down after 2 weeks. It was actually made of a sauce dispenser, so just some empty bottles we found and some simple batteries. But it didn't really matter. We took it to the village and we asked people to work with it. Please, you can generate energy and enjoy it. So it was a real product for them. It was not something we tried to do. We didn't try to make a change anymore. We offered them something they could respond to. So we found this guy. He was our first local energy supplier, as we call him today. And there's a solar panel on his roof now, and he started to generate energy. And after a week, this is what we found out. The first picture, you still see the kerosene lamp there, which they used for electricity. And we placed the kit there, and okay, he accepted us to put it there, and that was it. And after a week, the right picture is taken. And you see the shelf is nicely decorated, a bit rural Indian style, but still. And on the lower shelf, you see a booklet. We never asked him to keep administration, but he started to keep administration and to actually have administration of how many people rented energy from his place. So he started a business, and what we saw here is that a local system emerges. So like Wallace already mentioned, here we saw a crossroad of technology and social systems, actually. We offered them a little piece of very simple technology. It was really, really simple, built in one day, and there a local system emerged. So it fitted in their social system. And I think, to also speak in your words, that's really awesome what we saw happening here. So this was the start, actually, of Rural Spark, where we found out that the only way to really get insights in how to transform society is by just doing it. People respond to real propositions. We hear a lot about co-creation these days, and we say we should not co-create with our customers. We should actually fake to them almost like it's real, and only they can respond to it. They are not our co-designers. They are supposed to be our customers. They are supposed to use the product, right? Well, now we implemented 100 of these kits, serving around 7,000 people access to clean, safe, and sustainable energy. We're building the next kit, and we signed an agreement to distribute 10,000 of these kits. And the idea is to connect these kits with which these local energy suppliers generate energy, to connect them to battery packs, so they actually exchange energy surpluses. So if there's not enough solar energy, they might have biogas, and you can really balance out when you are in need of additional energy, or when you have surpluses, you can actually use them. So we're really growing a network based on the concept of smart grids, and it's happening today in India, actually. Here you see the trading of energy actually happening. And last June, we signed an agreement with an Indian partner to distribute 10,000 kits over the course of the next 2 years, which will serve around 600,000 people of clean, safe, and sustainable energy. And actually, the main thing I wanted to share today is that what we found is that you only change existing reality by advancing society, right? By making it happen, by coming up with products and make them respond to it, and actually create a system. And the central grid will still be there. The central government will still pursue to construct centralized grids. But on the same time, we can build the right networks right away. And at a certain moment in time, you will see them coexist. And of course, over time, the renewable energy will be a cheaper source and will probably be a larger network in India. Let's aim for that. So thank you very much.
Can I kindly invite Alexander and Marieke to step up and come over to the stand again, because I would like to thank you once more for these excellent presentations. There is flowers. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, it's time for entertainment. And I would like to announce Celine Cairo. Celine's career is going just like mine, steadily upward. At least that's what we think. We have been celebrating already 2 times together, and I'm really, really very happy that she is here again. So Celine, stage is yours.
Night falls, wide awake, I follow, and I break and lay me down in your hands. I follow. And no lies, no more fake, I follow, and I break and lay me down in your hands. I follow. And no matter where the river flows, just build me a boat and I will follow. And no matter where the birds decide to go, just give me the wind and I will follow. Strong hands and soft skin, I follow. You are in my ear, on your heart I follow. Ooh. Just give me the wind and I will follow. Just give me the wind and I will follow. Just give me the wind and I will follow.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you all for having me here again. This is my second time on this stage. I'm really glad to be here. I was asked to perform my songs in English. I wrote them in English, so that's a good thing. And the last time I was here, I did a cover that was requested, so that was Dutch. Now it's in English. I wanted to sing this next song for you because for me, I was thinking about going here, and I remember when I was starting my first year of university. It lasted 1 week. It was a time in my life where I was very hesitant about pursuing a career in music or doing a conventional study. So in the end, I decided to go to university, and within 1 week I realized that it was not what I was made for, it was not what I wanted, it was not where I felt I was doing the right thing. So I quit, and then the year after that I started studying at the conservatory and started studying music. So what I've learned from all this is, for me, what really, really helped me is to make decisions based on positivity, to start thinking about what I would really want if all the circumstances are right, when everything...
I've been living in the center of the world. I've been watching the walls, and you've been there all this time, trying to tell me that I have yet to find brightness in my mind. So I chose to walk in the light, and I do hope to stay in the light. I see you clearly now in the light. I see you clearly now, and I know it's been a while, but I see you clearly now. Here we stand and we can see the seasons change. We get our coats, it's time to go outside. And you have been there all this time, trying to tell me that I have yet to find brightness in my
Dank u wel.
The cathedral goes down, ladies and gentlemen, but that doesn't mean that we are now going to lift the level even higher. Up to some serious stuff. It gives me great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to announce Kim Lane-Chappelle. Kim is a Lawrence Rockefeller Professor of Sociology and International Affairs of Princeton University. And she has done very, very, very many special things. But I think that what really made her famous is the contribution that she made after 9/11, because she researched the effects of international war on terror on constitutional protection around the world. And that's as far as you can go, I expect. Because these things don't happen on the moon, you know, well, different stuff. Kim, can I invite you to come up to the stage and share with us your deep thoughts on society and how to advance it?
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Thank you. Dear President, dear no longer new Rector Magnificus, dear colleagues and students, and all who are present today. The beginning of the academic year officially opens a season of new ideas. But we academics cannot deny it. What we feel most acutely at the start of the academic year is the end of summer. But this was not a good summer for Europe. The Greek bailout exposed fundamental disagreement about the economic unity of Europe. In the end, an elected government of a member state was forced to bow to the demand of its creditors in a deal that many said failed to recognize the legitimate pluralism of economic policies in the EU. Not that the creditor states were happy either. They would have walked away from the negotiating table if they could have, but they were invested too heavily to leave. Relations between Northern and Southern Europe are now tenser than at any point in memory, but North and South are tied together in ways they cannot escape. As if the acrimony of Athens was not enough, Europe has also been plunged into a sea of migrants, as hundreds of thousands of desperate asylum seekers from places torn apart by civil war seek refuge here. Migrants are drowning in the Mediterranean or dying in smugglers' trucks by the side of the road, or left to fend for themselves without assistance in Europe's border states. And once again, Europe has been more divided than united, with only a few member states offering to share the humanitarian burden that both conscience and international law place on the shoulders of those who can offer safety. Under the EU's Dublin regulation, the first EU state that migrants enter bears responsibility for ensuring their health and safety, and it becomes the designated state to process their asylum applications. But the poorer states on the edges of Europe, here too, bear a disproportionate share of the pain for a common policy. Things are so bad along Europe's periphery that the European Court of Human Rights recently ruled that Greece was no longer a safe state to which migrants could be sent. So this summer, this is a depressing beginning after a lovely musical interlude, I'm afraid, but this summer, solidarity has been in short supply in the European Union. We even see it in Brexit, which is the persistent threat of secession that the UK holds up to the rest of Europe whenever anyone advocates ever closer union, which are words that the UK now wants to excise from the treaties. Now, Europe's multiple crises are actually linked. If Greece weren't engaged in such harsh austerity measures, it might be able to accommodate more of the desperate refugees. If the UK weren't poised with one foot out the door, other member states might find it easier to discuss a banking union or increased fiscal coordination, which would go a long way toward coping with the euro crisis. And pervading all of these crises is a sense that Europe is no longer a community that shares a commitment to common values. Given all we've seen this summer, it may seem hopeless to talk about a Europe of values. And yet, it is precisely at moments of acute stress that we need to remember the point of the European project. The post-war plan to unite Europe was designed to prevent yet another catastrophic conflict from devouring the continent. The European project started as a peace project. It created a united Europe by making its states so economically interdependent that war would simply not be thinkable. It was also a non-proliferation project. Euratom was designed to prevent each European state from getting its own nuclear weapon. At the moment when Europe's shortcomings are so obvious, we need to remember that these parts of the European project have succeeded spectacularly. However difficult the relationship came among Germany, the Netherlands, and Greece this summer, for example, no one was shooting and no one was threatening to go nuclear. The EU actually won the Nobel Peace Prize 3 years ago, and it actually deserved it. But the European project is not just a peace project. It is also a project to support and sustain a common commitment to deep political values, rejecting the devastating authoritarian and intolerant ideologies that gripped this continent in the 20th century. Europe is united in the belief that its member states should be vibrant democracies that protect human rights and honor the rule of law. These values started as aspirations and were eventually built into the treaties that ground the EU. Article 2 of the Treaty of the European Union says this: "The Union is founded on the values of respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights, including the rights of persons belonging to minorities. These values are common to the member states in a society in which pluralism, non-discrimination, tolerance, justice, solidarity, and equality between men and women prevail." Article 2 announces that the EU, is a Europe of values. European member states don't agree on everything. Europe's pluralism is in many ways its strength. The EU has room for governments of left and right, economic policies that are neoliberal or social democratic, forms of government that are constitutional monarchies or presidential republics or parliamentary democracies, states that have official religions and states that are officially secular. But Europe's variety is not limitless. Member states of the European Union have pledged never again. Never again to authoritarianism, never again to the abuse of human rights, and never again to the use of law as a tool of political domination. Europe has learned the hard way why the values of Article 2 matter. The European project was born when memories of Nazi atrocities were fresh. It was born again when the Soviet Empire crumbled and many former Soviet satellite states began the process of EU accession. At the start of a new academic year, when we refresh our commitment to the life of the mind, we also need to refresh our memories of how bad things can get when we fail to defend our core values. So let's consider a hypothetical. Suppose a European member state had rewritten its national constitution while refusing any role for the political opposition. Suppose that the government then fired virtually all of the high officials of independent institutions, from judges to election commissioners to ombudsmen, and replaced them all with loyalists of the governing party. Suppose further that this government stripped the legal status from hundreds of religious organizations, raided the offices of independent NGOs, and created a new secret police with broad surveillance powers. Suppose that this government whipped up anti-Semitism and anti-Roma sentiment, rewriting history to honor the past leaders who supported the Holocaust. Suppose that this government then attacked universities, canceling virtually all scholarships for fields like law and economics, also international relations and European studies, inserted political officials into the highest positions of universities, and then fired individual faculty members who were critical of the government. Suppose that when the government's popularity fell after doing all of this, it rewrote the election rules so that the opposition couldn't win. Suppose that the state were not hypothetical. Unfortunately, this example is real, and its real name is Hungary. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has bragged that he is creating an illiberal state in the middle of Europe, taking countries like Russia, China, and Singapore as his models. He has said that Hungary is meant to be for Hungarians, by which he means only ethnic Hungarians, something that is written into the new constitution. Mr. Orbán has reopened the closed question of the death penalty in Europe, and he's launched a vicious campaign against migrants, erecting a razor wire fence along the edges of the EU and calling out the military to defend the border. A new law just passed in Hungary that took effect last week will enable it to turn down virtually all asylum applications, no matter how meritorious. When the European Commission for Democracy Through Law, which is the Venice Commission, when it expresses serious concern about the independence of Hungary's judiciary, and the International Bar Association agrees, when the European Parliament has repeatedly passed strong resolutions against Hungary for putting at risk the values of Article 2, when the Court of Human Rights and the Court of Justice have ruled against Hungary on virtually every aspect of the constitutional revolution that has come before them, when the election monitors at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe say the most recent election was unfair, and when the local diplomatic corps in Budapest, under Dutch leadership, I might add, creates a transparency committee to model European values to the Hungarian government with the hope of persuading it to change course, when you see all of those things at once, the matter has gone beyond partisan politics and beyond the legitimate pluralism of the EU. When all these institutions and experts agree on the seriousness of what is happening in Hungary, it is fair to say that European values are in danger. So what can be done? I think the EU must set aside its differences after this summer of strife and remember why it was created. Europe must stand up for its values. It turns out, however, that there is no way to expel a member state from the EU. But the European treaties anticipated that a state might breach its Article 2 obligations, so they set up a process through which the member states' participation in European institutions may be suspended. Under Article 7 of the Treaty of the European Union, supermajorities of the European political institutions are necessary to trigger this sanction. Former Commission President José Manuel Barroso has called this the nuclear option, and so far it has never been invoked. But it could be. There are also less drastic steps the EU can take to indicate that systemic challenges to European values will not be tolerated. The European Council, in which the Netherlands will hold the rotating presidency in the first half of 2016, has established, on Dutch inspiration, by the way, a peer review process in which member states will review and critique each other each year. It is crucial that this process be substantive and tough. Better to have your friends alert you to the dangers of your own course of action than to suffer more serious penalties later on. The European Commission, as guardian of the European treaties, also has a role to play here. The Commission regularly launches infringement procedures against member states before the Court of Justice when member states have failed to follow EU law. The Commission could change the focus of these infringement procedures to allege systemic violations of EU values. It could bring the case, and sorry for all the non-lawyers in the room, but just to show this is really a legal proposal, it could bring the case either directly under Article 2, claiming a threat to European values, or under Article 4.3, which requires all member states to, quote, facilitate the achievement of the Union's tasks and refrain from any measure which could jeopardize the attainment of union objectives, unquote. That's also called the loyalty principle in EU law. Alternatively, the Commission could allege that when the member state was implementing EU law, it had violated rights protected in the European Charter of Fundamental Rights. The point would be to signal to the Court of Justice that a member state didn't just infringe some relatively technical point of EU law, but that the member state had engaged in general and persistent violations of important values. If the Court of Justice agreed and found a systemic infringement of European values, the Commission could develop a plan to bring the member state into systemic compliance. Europe should always retain its legitimate pluralism and should find strength in its different national traditions. But Europe also has a common history in which authoritarian and illiberal states laid waste to the continent within living memory and created suffering on a massive scale. When we see member states of the European Union step outside the place of legitimate pluralism and engage in actions that recall that history that made Europe pledge never again, the other member states must act. At the opening of the academic year, we should focus on the important values that hold Europeans together, values that were not lost over the summer as member states squabbled. As we recommit ourselves to the life of the mind and the production of new knowledge, we should also commit ourselves to safeguarding again a Europe of values. Without increased European solidarity, the continued success of the European project cannot be taken for granted. Europe's recent history teaches us that a divided Europe is a dangerous Europe, but it also teaches us that a Europe united around common values can be a beacon of light for the world. Thank you.
We are not done yet.
We're not done yet. Okay.
I would like to thank you once more, Kim, and also to give a short present, or a small present to you. So, University has also worked. This is an atlas on European values.
You're already contributing to it. That's great. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I have to check now. What is the status? I'm sorry? Yeah, that is a good idea. But this is my boss, so I have to consult.
We have just been informed that Frans Timmermans will arrive, but he is in traffic somewhere between 5:05 and 5:10. So we propose one drink.
A break.
A short break, and please come back afterwards. And thank you so far. He will be here. Have a little patience and maybe one beer.
Yep. Yep. And let's do it unofficially. So, okay. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It gives us great pleasure to announce that the speaker has arrived. He's even still wet a little. So great. Thank you very much for taking all this effort, Mr. Timmermans, for being here at this so very special occasion. I also would like to thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for coming back after the break. I know how tempting it is to stay outside and to mingle and discuss affairs amongst each other. Because being back here means that you pay respect to the next speaker, which is great. That is at the heart of this university, Mr. Timmermans. You will experience that. I would like to give the floor now to the president again, Koen, to introduce our next speaker. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Emil. We are very honored that Frans Timmermans has joined us today and that he will talk to us about the rule of law in Europe. He does this as a keynote speaker at our two-day conference on this topic, a topic that is indeed more relevant than ever. In the history of the European project, these are challenging times, as Professor Chappell has been talking about. This is demonstrated by the fact that Frans has just come from Calais and a meeting on refugees looking to make their home in Europe. These pressing circumstances and the acute financial situation in Greece force us Europeans to show our true colors. How united are we? Are we indeed, in addition to reaping the benefits, also prepared to bear the burdens of cooperation across our continent? Which agreements are we prepared to honor? Which laws and rules will we accept other than our national ones? How can we make European law and regulation more effective in order to increase its support base? These questions occupy us more than ever before. If anyone can talk with inspiration on this topic, it is Frans Timmermans. He is a statesman for whom the world has few borders, and he is a politician with an eye for humanity, which, irrespective of ancestry and nationality, binds us, as emerged in the wake of the MH17 disaster. As first Vice Chair of the European Commission, he literally works for a better world and, in particular, a better Europe. He is a man, in short, for whom advancing society, the topic for this afternoon, is tailor-made, which is why we should delay no further. I give you Frans Timmermans.
Thank you very much, and I want to start by thanking you for your patience. I'm very sorry to be so late, but we ran into a lot of traffic driving here from Calais. The weather is terrible, as you know, and you know the effects on traffic. I have some very fond memories of this hall. I think it must have been 15 years ago or so, perhaps a bit more, that my political father, Max van der Stoel, accepted a position as professor at this university, and he spoke in this very hall, a bit more to that side, if I remember correctly, at the time, when he accepted his professorship. And I think it is right for me to start with him when talking on the rule of law, because I once asked him, why are you, Max, so passionate about human rights and the rule of law? Where does this come from? Why is this something that will be a lifelong fight for you? Why can't you let it go? Because sometimes you could be almost obsessive with these issues. And he took me back to the 10th of May, 1940, when he was not even 16 years of age. And he traveled with his mother from Leiden, where they stayed, to his grandparents' home in Rijnsburg, where they had a sort of a plantation or flower business. And he said it was a very silly move because we were perfectly safe in Leiden, but my grandparents really wanted us to join them in Rijnsburg. And what Max saw at the time was paratroopers, German paratroopers, coming down at Valkenburg Airport. And he said to me many, many years later, I wasn't even 16, but I understood immediately that it was therefore possible with brute force just to invade another country and take everything away. And that this was done by people I had admired for their culture, for their literature, for their music. They just came in, took all our liberties away, and we were nowhere. And he said, that is why I believe passionately in the rule of law. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the best explanation and justification I have ever heard. And then I really love sharing it with you, certainly because it's someone who was part of your community, someone who devoted a lot of attention to this university. And he was, I have to add, very grateful to the university for giving him this opportunity and also sort of codifying his experience in politics in academia, which is another pet project of mine. I shan't elaborate on that, but we should do more in codifying this relationship. We should do more in cooperating between the two worlds. My world is a day-to-day world. My world is a world that doesn't reward analysis, that doesn't reward long-term thought. Your world is a world that does reward long-term thought and analysis, but doesn't really always reward the day-to-day elements in what we do. And perhaps, we should look for ways of creating more cross-fertilization between the two worlds. Given Max's explanation, I have to say that the rule of law is part of Europe's DNA. It's part of where we come from and where we need to go. It makes us what we are, if Europe can be defined at least in moral terms. The nations who are part of the European Union inherited a worldview in which the supremacy of the law plays an indispensable part. For that reason, this heritage is mentioned right at the start of our basic treaty, in the preamble to the Lisbon Treaty, which speaks of the signatory countries, and I quote, drawing inspiration from the cultural, religious, and humanist inheritance of Europe, from which have developed the universal values of the inviolable and I always have trouble with that word, inalienable rights, I got it right, inalienable rights of the human person, freedom, democracy, equality, and the rule of law, unquote. It is no coincidence the rule of law is the last, so certainly not the least, of our fundamental values to be described here. It is in many ways the cornerstone upon which all the others rest. For Europe, the rule of law is not just an inspiration, it is also an aspiration, a principle that guides both our internal and external actions. It is what we are and what we want to be, because it is never a given. And any human being is just not just he or she is, but there's always something we always all want to be. And for this European Commission, at this moment in time, a time of confusion, of turmoil, of economic fragility, geopolitical emergencies, of social pressure, political populism, and may I add, a touch of moral insecurity, it is one of the defining challenges. It is indeed, I believe, our chosen method of advancing society. So this conference could not have come at a better time. When it comes to the cultural, religious, and humanist inheritance of Europe, possibly the oldest and probably the clearest expression of this principle is found in the writings of Aristotle already. He wrote, "It is better for the law to rule than one of the citizens, so even the guardians of the laws are obeying the laws." To put it less delicately, it was an early attempt to answer the ancient question of who will babysit the babysitter. If the answer he came up with in the form of the rule of law is inspirational, that does not mean it is always easy to uphold. Much later, the law that governs even the lawmakers proved to be equally necessary in the age of mass democracy. Had he been writing in the 20th century, Aristotle would have added, "It is better for the law to rule than a mere majority of the citizens, so that even a majority is obeying the laws that protect minorities." Here we are at the heart of a challenge we see in many European nations today. Democracy being used as a justification to not have the rule of law respected. It is done all too often. And it does appeal to people's feelings. Well, it's democratic. We decide the majority wants it, so why not? And I believe we have a moral and legal obligation to challenge that, to challenge the assertion that you could brush aside the rule of law simply on the basis of the majority wanting it. And again here, I think we have ample examples in European history in the 20th century to prove us right in maintaining this position. 20th century, the best and the worst in European history, has driven home the point that the rule of law is the only way to stabilize relations, not only between nations, but also within nations, to guarantee peace and fundamental rights between citizens as well as between countries. Democracy and the rule of law, as I said, go hand in hand. But you cannot use the one to undermine the other. There is a very careful equilibrium, human rights, democracy, rule of law, which should not be distorted, because if you attack the one, the other will suffer by essence. Today, with democracy well established in the countries that make up the European Union, as well as increasingly in the European Union itself, the fight for the rule of law is as relevant as ever, and perhaps even more relevant than a couple of years ago. We should never take the rule of law for granted. It is never a given, especially not in times of crisis like today, when geopolitical pressure threatens to overwhelm us, economic uncertainty frightens us, and social tensions convulse some of our members in Europe. In all too many places across Europe today, we see alarming tendencies emerging. And as happens frequently in times of crisis, it is members of minorities, be they racial, religious, ethnic or other, who are the first to be singled out as scapegoats. It starts with imperceptible signs, then grows into illiberal temptations, and even into talk in certain quarters of illiberal democracy, indeed, using democracy to create illiberal societies, and then justifying it by pointing to democracy. It is a vicious circle. This is why the protection of our fundamental values, of fundamental rights, democracy and the rule of law has taken new significance today. Because we realize that the rule of law is fragile, and if you are not vigilant enough, can suffer threats anywhere. It has become such a given, the rule of law, that therefore it is more vulnerable today than before, because it's not a given and should never be treated as such. Recognizing this, President Juncker decided to single out the rule of law and fundamental rights for special attention and to make it a specific mandate within the Commission, a specific responsibility which he has asked me to take up. I honestly see it as one of my greatest and most difficult responsibilities. And if you realize we've been struggling with that question since Aristotle, we're sure to be in difficult waters here. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, the idea of European unification is in part born from the failure of sovereign states in themselves to come up with convincing answers. Their inability to safeguard the rule of law, to protect citizens' rights, to uphold constitutional government by themselves. Cross-border integration was put in place in order to strengthen responsibility towards one another. If I depend on you, I will not disregard your interests. If I depend on you and you depend on me, we depend on each other and therefore have to take care of each other's problems. That is the basis upon which European integration was built. It was put in place in order to strengthen responsibility towards one another and also within borders towards their own citizens. European nations pooled sovereignty in order to secure the basic aims of sovereignty. Isn't that an interesting debate these days, this issue between national sovereignty and European integration? And then people talk about sovereignty as if it were an abstract thing, just something in a constitution or in law books. But I would like to define sovereignty as not just the right to act, but the ability to act. If you diminish sovereignty only to the right to act, then of course I can understand the debate about wanting to keep sovereignty national. But if that turns out to be keeping sovereignty only at a national level, in legal terms, if that turns out to be a recipe for creating the inability to act, the inability to deliver, what is the meaning of that sovereignty in concrete terms? Is sovereignty then not hollowed out? And should not sovereignty then be given new powers by pooling it with others so that you create the level at which you can act and which you can deliver for your citizens? I think that should be, in my view, the definition of sovereignty. It should never be dissociated with the practical capability of acting. Otherwise, it becomes a purely theoretical debate. I believe that European unification turned philosophy into reality, eventually evolving to an unprecedented level of integration. Integration, which simply means you depend on each other, and laid down the rule of law as the basis for democratic countries' behavior in a way that was never seen before. You could compare this to the Greek hero Odysseus, demanding to be roped to the mast of his ship to be able to resist the call of the sirens. "Take me and bind me to the crosspiece halfway up the mast," Homer describes him as saying. "If I beg and pray you to set me free, then bind me more tightly still," he says. That, I believe, is the basis of constitutional democratic government in Europe. And the protector of that system is the EU itself, based on the treaties as developed and signed by the member states themselves. So what specifically is the European Union's role in promoting the rule of law in and between member states? What tools do we have at hand? And to what extent are Europe's nations tied to the mast? Here the answer is easier when we talk about the rule of law as a structural part of the EU legal system than when we talk about the rule of law as a fundamental value. Within the scope of union law, the mechanisms are well established. Individuals can challenge measures before national courts and have them referred to the Court of Justice, and European law guarantees that they will find an objective and impartial judge at national level to hear their case. The Commission, as guardian of the treaties, can bring infringement procedures to enforce EU law, and we do so increasingly. And this is the way the Commission has successfully dealt with many, often highly sensitive challenges to the rule of law in recent years. For instance, against Hungary on cases like the early retirement of judges, or on the violation of the data protection supervisory authority's independence, or on the equal treatment of Roma children in schools in the Czech Republic and Slovakia, where infringement cases are pending. However, the EU is a union of conferred powers. It does not have what in German is so beautifully called Kompetenz. Therefore, the union can only act where the member states have conferred competence on it. The member states have chosen not to make the union the general guardian of the respect of fundamental rights and other constitutional principles in their legal orders. We have the Charter of Fundamental Rights, but it only applies, including the right to effective judicial review, when member states are implementing EU law. So what happens where fundamental values are disrespected in a member state outside the scope of EU law? There are no infringement proceedings that apply, but there is the special mechanism of Article 7 of the EU Treaty, which can lead to the suspension of the member states' rights, including its voting rights. Given its magnitude, the threshold for activating the mechanism, both on substance and voting requirements, are demanding. It's a measure of last resort, not to be excluded, but I hope that we never let a situation escalate to the stage that would require its use. And I believe that the case of Austria, with Haider joining the government, has weakened the EU's capacity to react in such a case, because it was a political reaction to a political situation which completely backfired at the time. And since then, member states have been reluctant to take other member states, to take up issues with other member states pertaining to fundamental rights. It didn't work then. So we're much better at challenging candidate countries, non-member countries, than we are at looking at our own countries. And that, is, I think, is one of the challenges I personally will have to face in the coming years, to find solutions for that problem. Precisely to be able to address emerging threats to the rule of law before they escalate, the Commission has adopted 2 years ago a rule of law framework. This framework sets out a structured process according to which the Commission will react when there are systematic threats to the rule of law, and which may lead to specific recommendations to the member state concerned. So, do we have enough tools and the right tools at our disposal in order to ensure the rule of law across Europe? I know that some say no. Referring to the Hungarian case, they criticized the Commission for not having activated the rule of law framework yet. Some argue that we need a new framework, one that addresses not just the rule of law, but also fundamental rights and democratic values. Others claim that the framework should be more automatic, maybe even with parameters that trigger the application of the framework, similar to mechanisms we find in the field of economic policy. I beg to differ. It is certainly not true that we have been too lenient or hesitant towards member states. I think it is more the case that member states have been lenient vis-à-vis each other. In recent years, the Commission has brought numerous, often unpopular, but always necessary infringement procedures to ensure the application of EU law, including on rule of law related aspects. And this has led to tangible results. When certain lines are crossed, we do not hesitate to speak out, as happened when President Juncker and I reacted to the debate on the introduction of the death penalty in Hungary. But the Commission must also remain an impartial, objective, and independent arbiter, and base itself on the law and the facts on the ground. This means that we can only act against actual measures, not polemics or speeches. And you cannot solve an issue of political polemic through a mechanism comparable to a mechanism you can use when countries do not respect the rules of the Stability Pact. It is a different matter. It cannot be compared. I'm also not convinced that we need any new mechanism and frameworks to protect our fundamental values. It is true, our current framework only applies to the rule of law, not to other fundamental values. But by guaranteeing the rule of law and the right to effective judicial protection, we at the same time ensure that fundamental rights will be effectively protected and electoral laws correctly applied. I think the problem is more of non-application of the instruments we have rather than the need to create new instruments. But I've been a politician long enough to know that if you don't apply the instruments you have, the temptation is big to create a new, bigger, better model. It's like in advertising, the same stuff with a new packaging. Doesn't work. Use the stuff you have. That would work. I'm even less convinced by proposals aiming to make the application of the rule of law framework more automatic. I do not believe it is possible to define the precise criteria that would trigger automatic reactions. It is a political process. What may work in the field of economic policy cannot necessarily be transposed to an entirely different area, such as the rule of law, in which a measure of discretion will always remain unavoidable. So do we have the right tools in place? I believe we do at this stage. Can we be complacent and lean back? No, not at all. Things are not in perfect order. The challenges to tolerance and mutual respect in our societies, reinforced by the current crises, are real and serious. The forces of bigotry and populism, of racism and xenophobia, are on the rise, and we simply cannot let them gain ground. Let me refer very briefly to the recent report the United Nations came out with on human rights or racism in the Netherlands. Apart from going into different aspects of the report, if you want to be a beacon of human rights, if you want to be a beacon of fighting racism, if you want to be a beacon of protecting international law, then at least you should be open to criticism, even if you believe the criticism is not justified. If there is criticism by eminent scholars, by eminent specialists, why don't you accept the premise? Why don't you have enough self-confidence to say the criticism might be justified or not, but we'll talk about it? Dismissing it outright, I think, is the wrong reaction and does not increase your own credibility when you challenge others. And I believe this is also a very important element in European circumstances, both in the EU and in the Council of Europe. You can only challenge others if you are always prepared to be challenged yourself. I take issue with some members of the British government who say, well, our fundamental rights in the UK are perfect. We don't need others. We don't need a court in Strasbourg to check what we're doing. Well, if you take that position in London, the same position will be taken in Moscow or elsewhere. It only works if you're prepared to be criticized. For heaven's sake, this country should have enough self-confidence to accept criticism and look into its soul to see whether the criticism is justified or not. And this is about much more than just Black Pete. And again, if such an issue leads to people feeling insulted, feeling hurt, what is wrong by just accepting the fact that another person might be hurt and recognizing that fact, even if you cannot imagine that being the case? It might be the case for that other person. And is it not a basic element of any form of humanity that you at least try to have the capacity to look at the world through another person's eyes? Does that not make us human? As Camus said, the only distinction between animals and humans is that humans are capable of looking at the world through somebody else's eyes. Let's not lose that capacity. As I said, the challenges are huge. The willingness to look at the world through somebody else's perspective in Europe, but even in our countries, is diminished. Where am I is the first question. Why should I show solidarity with another? Who shows solidarity with me? Those are very fundamental challenges, and we see a rise of hatred and intolerance. In particular, the terrible, terrible scourge of anti-Semitism is back in force across the European Union and elsewhere, accompanied by a different but related phenomenon, which is anti-Muslim hatred. On the 1st and 2nd of October, we will hold the first annual EU colloquium on fundamental rights in Brussels. And I have decided to dedicate it to this very topic, fighting anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hatred, as two distinct yet related phenomena. A significant challenge currently faced by our societies results from the unprecedented number of people coming to Europe in search of refuge. Here also, the rule of law has a crucial role to play. It requires that all those entitled to asylum and protection are received in humane conditions and have their case dealt with efficiently and quickly. But it also means that all those who have no right to stay must be returned to their countries of origin rapidly and efficiently, and must get the opportunity to apply for legal ways of migration, because our society is certainly not against that. Solidarity and responsibility must go hand in hand. In Europe, we must be able to trust that the common rules are applied effectively and vigorously everywhere and at all times. And here again, I often see the same phenomenon of dehumanizing. You know, Xenophobia and hatred can only happen if you dehumanize the other, if you start bit by bit, slowly taking away another person's humanity. You know, your neighbor is no longer a man, he's a Jew or a Muslim. And then slowly from there, you take away, step by step, elements of their humanity. Are we not sometimes doing that with refugees, fortune seekers, asylum seekers? Do we not forget sometimes that if you're in Homs or in Damascus and you want your children to survive, you probably want to leave the country now? And don't we forget that we, as human beings, have the obligation toward other human beings, if they flee from persecution, if they flee from war, to give them safe refuge until they can go back. It is a moral imperative. But ladies and gentlemen, it is also a legal imperative. A legal imperative, a moral imperative, and I believe we should be reminded of this on a daily basis, and I believe we can convince our populations of this as long as we put a lot of effort in making sure that the people who seek refuge are seen as human beings, as fellow human beings, and not as packages or as fortune seekers or whatever other denomination we give them. If democracy is not sufficient to guarantee the rule of law, it is nevertheless a necessary condition to do so. We can only bind governments to the mast if the decisions that bind them are democratically made and enforced. Democratic debate and open decision-making, both at the EU and at the national level, are the natural and necessary counterpart to the power of the law. We've been granted, the European Commission, powers to hold member states to their commitments. We are, in the most literal sense of the word, commissioned to uphold the rule of law as defined by member states in the treaties. That is our mission, our authority, our raison d'être, and we take it very seriously indeed in everything we do. But we must remember that in a democracy, certainly in a democracy as we live in it today, such power can be wielded only through political debate and public accountability, through a measure of consensus and a great deal of conviction. That is the reason why this Commission is purposely more political than most of its predecessors, because with power comes responsibility, and we must show that we too are governed by the laws. Perhaps you will allow me to say a few words on the international dimension of the rule of law, as well as, always, as a crucial element of Europe's self-image, through one of all too often overlooked. As I said, the rule of law is not only a moral inspiration, but also a global inspiration, and in this, the European Union is not alone. In the preamble of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it reads, and I quote, "It is essential, if man is not to be compelled to have recourse at a last resort to rebellion against tyranny and oppression, that human rights should be protected by the rule of law," unquote. It is significant how the Declaration, not coincidentally, of the same age as the European project, highlights the international, even systemic importance of the rule of law. Between states as between citizens, only the law can support real freedom and sustainable peace. Before, international relations have been driven forward by, or rather, have been driven back into, a Darwinian survival of the fittest. As Rudyard Kipling has memorably described it, and I quote, "Now this is the law of the jungle, as old and as true as the sky. And the wolf that shall keep it may prosper, but the wolf that shall break it must die." 2 world wars, countless human misery, had shown the world exactly what a struggle of all against all led to. In future, statesmen would move beyond the destructive laws as old and as true as the sky. From now on, the nations were united in learning Henri Lacordaire's lesson, entre le fort et le faible. C'est la liberté qui opprime et la loi qui affranchit. Interestingly, it is always the strong who claim liberty as a justification, and it's the weak who will depend on the law to make sure that liberty is not just a toy of the strong. European integration is always intended to be in the avant-garde of that process, a laboratory and an engine in shaping the new world order. For that reason, Europe's external action is explicitly, constitutionally based on the same principles as its internal organization, as also described in the Lisbon Treaty, Article 10A. I quote, "The Union's action on the international scene shall be guided by the principles which have inspired its own creation, development, and enlargement, and which it seeks to advance in the wider world: democracy, the rule of law, universality and indivisibility of human rights and fundamental freedoms, respect for human dignity, the principles of equality and solidarity, and respect for the principles of the United Nations Charter and international law." This is why we remain strongly committed to the Council of Europe and the European Convention for Human Rights. The European Convention guarantees respect for human rights and the rule of law across the continent, including in the immediate neighborhood of the Union, and sometimes countries where there are serious problems with the independence of the judiciary, with the respect of human rights. Look at the recent, in my view, politically motivated court cases in Russia. Even in those countries, through the Council of Europe, you can have improvements of the situation, because there is respect, at least in some measure, of this European system. I believe it represents a common bond which is invaluable and for which there is no substitute. I also believe the European Union should accede to the European Convention, and I'm confident that we will find solutions to the legal issues raised by the European Court of Justice in its opinion of last December. Hence also our strong support for the World Trade Organization, built on a system of law which not only liberalizes but also regulates trade and makes sure the rules are fairly and equally applied to and by all. Hence our sustained investment in the International Criminal Court to support national judicial efforts against mass atrocities and crimes against humanity, and if need be, as a last resort, to replace them. Hence our persistent backing for the United Nations system, leading British thinker Mark Leonard to conclude pointedly that it's Europe that has led the way towards a future run by committees and statesmen, not soldiers and strongmen. That is what the rule of law on the international stage means in practice. That is what I believe the EU stands for. And that is still 70 years after the Second World War, and in a world where soldiers and strongmen still make the papers on a daily basis, our number one challenge. In George Orwell's Animal Farm, again, not coincidentally a product of the same age in which Europe was reborn, the difference between the rule by law and the rule of law is wonderfully described. The farm's commandments were clearly written down for all to see, until they simply no longer served the purpose of the animals in charge, the pigs, who overnight had them rewritten. And in the end, the main rules simply read, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. They didn't have the inviolable and inalienable right, there I go again, inalienable rights of the human person that the Lisbon Treaty guarantees. They had as much room as power awarded them, no more, no less, which in the end was extremely little. That is what happens, Orwell warned us throughout this and other writings, when power goes unchecked internally and externally. It ends up uncontrollable, bringing out the worst in people and becoming a threat to, instead, a tool of citizens for citizens. If power is corrupt, then absolute power is absolutely corrupt. Which brings us back to Aristotle, who said, as man is the best of all animals when he has reached his full development, so he is worst of all when divorced from law and justice. Europe's goal has to be, and always has to be, to bring them together, to make sure the law is never divorced from a sense of humanity, and Europe's citizens can always count on law and justice. We will strive for that, but we will absolutely need your help, your thoughts, your brilliance, to face these challenges in a changing world, where what we see as necessary is not always seen as necessary by everyone. Thank you very much for your attention.
Many of us, Mr. Timmermans, here at this university value the advancement of Europe, and we have laid out a number of these values that we seek and which we would like to develop in this atlas, as we call it. And I would like to give it to you as a token of appreciation. And thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
In addition, ladies and gentlemen, to the great contribution Mr. Timmermans has made to the advancement of Europe, many of us remember your heroic act in the international discussions after the MH17 disaster. MH17, sorry. That really was something that touched us by the heart. You are a man of principles. You are an independent thinker. You are a role model of the type of person we would like to educate at this university. Thank you very much. I'm proud to be a Dutchman because of you. And this disaster, ladies and gentlemen, came very close to our university because one of our esteemed colleagues, Professor Witteveen, was one of the victims. At the request of the New York Times, a Dutch award-winning photographer took a series of photographs of some of the victims' rooms and workplaces. They are images, one might say, of the emptiness they left behind. The photographs taken of Professor Witteveen's 2 rooms at this university in the Montesquieu and Dante buildings were added to the series. The series is currently displayed in the foyer of the Kopenhagen building. Please visit it and give your thoughts a free space. That, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this very, very fine and nice ceremony. It took some time. We started at 3. It's 6:05. I think that was the first ceremony in more than 80 years where we had a break, Frans, and that was all due to you. So we used it to have a drink and to, let's say, mingle a little. So thanks for this great contribution. You did fine. We now are going to stop. We are going to leave this room. I would like to kindly ask you to give the small cortege the opportunity, together with Kim Scheppele and Mr. Timmermans, to leave the room first, and then the big cortege will follow with our esteemed guests. And then I would like to close this ceremony, as usual, with a short prayer. I have to put off my cap. I will get used to that. May we be filled with the breath of life, which will guide us towards the wisdom and knowledge to heal that which seems to be incurable and to accomplish that which seems to be impossible. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here.